Welcome to Nurses with Voices, the podcast where we amplify the voices of nurses everywhere. I'm your host, Dr. Yrlande James, DNP and I am thrilled to go on this podcast journey with you. As a nurse with over 20-something years of experience, I've witnessed dedication, resilience, and passion that defines our profession. Through this podcast, we aim to educate, empower, and inspire nurses at every stage of their careers. Whether you're a novice nurse navigating the challenges of bedside care, an experienced clinician looking to advance in your field, or dreaming of becoming a nurse entrepreneur, Nurses with Voices is here for you. Join me as we delve into topics such as advancing in nursing, mastering leadership skills, and fostering a supportive community within our profession. Together, we'll explore the triumphs, struggles, and countless opportunities that come with being a nurse. So tune in, subscribe, and let your voice be heard, because here at Nurses with Voices, every nurse has a story worth sharing, and every nurse voice deserves to be amplified. Hello, and welcome back to Nurses with Voices. I am your host, Dr. Yrlande James, DNP and we are continuing on our health and wealth series. So today I have Yrlande Simon here, a wealth care nurse, and we're going to be talking about financial literacy. So Yrlande will be a guest on she'll be a panelist, I should say, at our Health and Wealth Expo, and I'm super excited about it. I'm super excited about talking with you today. So Yrlande, thank you so much for coming. So tell the listeners, tell them a little bit about who you are and what led you to become or placed you where you are today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Lindra. I'm excited to be here and just be connecting again. My background, I have an extensive nursing background. This year, I will be celebrating my 20th year as an RN.
Wow.
I'm only 25. I was and then I segue into becoming a nurse practitioner. I've been a nurse practitioner licensed for 15 years. I love the nursing field. Yeah, I love the nursing field. However, what I kept realizing was that nurses were very ill prepared because we were well trained to take care of people, but not well trained to take care of ourselves. So when I started realizing that there's a problem here, we don't really have it all together as much as we should when it comes to retirement, when it comes to disability. So I figured who's best to take care of each other but another nurse. With that being said, I'm not just a financial coach for nurses, but my heart is toward nurses. And the reason that, again, I went into that field because we're good at educating each other. We're good at motivating people to do what's right. So I just married the nursing and the finance together, and then I feel like I'm always practicing nursing, whether I'm on the field or behind the camera, educating a family.
Nice. I love it. I love it. I know you refer to yourself as a retired nurse, right? So what do you mean by that? Well, I know we love nursing, right? That was where we came from. So when you say you're a retired nurse, because I feel like once a nurse, always a nurse, right? Right.
Right.
So it seems like you're just taking your passion and you've molded it and pivoted into another way into finances. So tell me a little bit about like that retirement aspect and where that come from.
Yes, the retirement aspect actually kind of snuck up on me a little bit. Of course, as a nurse, I love nursing, and I've done a lot of different avenues of nursing. But quite honestly, I was burnt out in 2020. So when I started doing financial services, in aligning things for me financially, in aligning my retirement and proper protection, I decided because a lot of us nurses, we have an entrepreneur inside of us. We can do so much. So that's one of the reasons I decided, let me just put that nurse hat down for 1 minute and then focus on learning and growing as a financial coach. So I somehow, rested from nursing and gave myself time to heal for 2 years of not touching nursing work. But of course, like you said, the once a nurse, always a nurse. I was always there. You need help. What is this? Go get this checked out. So you never kind of step away from nursing. So I call myself nursing from a different standpoint, nursing with a different title. So I do still teach now. I did get back in the field to see some patients, and I find myself teaching the things that I had no answer to now. Instead of just the nursing piece, when someone worry about the finances, why am I not getting this? I'm able to answer those questions now. So yes, I use the term retired nurse loosely, but I don't think I could ever take nursing out of me, if that answers your question as well.
Right. And no, you're right. And, you mentioned 2020, and I think that was really a challenging time for everyone. Like 2020 will always be embedded in so many of our minds. So when you say 2020 to a healthcare professional, automatic, and I think the world really, right? People automatically know what you're referring to, especially with healthcare. Do you see any changes in not only just healthcare, but also wealth management post COVID?
Wealth management post-COVID, people have been a little bit more hyper aware of their existence, of the fact that they need to have things in place, more or less from families, because of the fact that they notice that they're not going to live forever, or disability can happen because of a single illness. So there was a need for knowledge, and I felt like people did not know who to go to. They did not know who to turn to. So because of that, people were seeking knowledge and they needed someone to educate them. So what I notice is happening in the shift is that the younger individuals are looking for what can they do, what can they put in place so they can actually own their time and their be able to do better than their parents. And you also notice another thing with healthcare workers, we were looking for how do we remain productive, but yet be able to work from home, be able to work remotely, and be able to not trade time for money. So that's one of the shifts that I noticed when it comes to finances. People were now saying, if I can do this from home and earn more, if I can align my finances on my own and not depend on the job for certain things, I'm better off, I'm more productive. So that's one of the shifts that I noticed. And quite honestly, I got blessed to walk into, because then I become the educator there.
Nice. I love it. I love it. So tell me, what are some of the challenges that you found with nurses, right, in their careers financially, and being financially ready, right, for the future, right, and beyond?
Yeah, some of the finances that I found is that we're very ill prepared. A nurse could be master's prepared, doctor prepared, but a lot of your listener, they never really gave us not even a lecture on how to manage your finance, because at school, quite honestly, seem to focus on how to go work for someone else, but not how to take care of yourself. So because the education was not provided to us, the job doesn't really provide us any education. We get out, because remember, when you're a nurse, your focus is on your patient, your focus on outcome. So you don't really think about yourself until it's too late. So a lot of nurses, what I notice is that they put off retirement for God knows when, and then they end up working miserably because there were never any plan in place. And another aspect I notice is that they depend on their employer to
Mhm.
take care of their retirement. They depend on their own employer to properly protect them, to cover them when it comes to disability. And somehow they're falling short because systems change, things change. And then unfortunately, we really don't keep up with that, because how do we keep up with the nursing literature? What's changing on the job? And then keep up with finances and how to manage ourselves. So
I
those
I
are some of.
love it. I love it. I love like everything that you're saying is 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 so resonating with me, because it's like you said, like this is exactly what I say all the time. Like I say this all the time. No one ever really taught nurses about finances. No one ever taught us about healthcare, the business side of healthcare, right? So starting your own business, I know from even for me, when stepping into the world of nursepreneurship, right, or entrepreneurship, it was a game changer. It was a completely different beast that I wasn't, I was ill prepared for, as you mentioned. So everything that you're saying is just resonates with me because, like you said, even in nursing school, right? What do they teach us? They teach us how to work in the traditional setting of nursing, right? No one talks to us about being healthcare consultants. No one talks to us about, right? They teach us Florence Nightingale, and I know she paved the way, right? So, but that's what they teach us. So, you're absolutely right. Um, what do you think are some of the complexities, right, when it comes to just retirement plans and not being, because you mentioned like nurses working for a longer time and then they become like nurse ratchet, right? So remember when we were that younger nurse and we saw that nurse who was probably like our age now or a little older.
No.
Right? It was like, oh, like, why is she so grumpy, right? But you realize now why, right? You realize now like why they're so grumpy. So what do you think are like I said, like what do you think are some of the complexities when it comes to financial awareness and just really not having that financial components in the hospitals, because a lot of the hospitals, they're being ran by the board of trust, right? The board of trustees. So, and I've worked in leadership, so I've seen, I'll let you answer the question first. But I'll go there. I think you know where I'm going with this, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And actually you rightfully align. I think some of the complexity is that decisions are being made about our lives and our futures, and we're not invited to the table. If you're not part of the decision making when it comes to your future, there's no way that you're going to have a fair outcome.
Right.
So one of the complexities is that nurses need to get to leadership position, become part of the boards and be able to make those decisions. Just saying, I love nursing and I just want to stay at the bedside is great, but what are you doing for your fellow nurses?
Right.
And then we also need to be in legislation because that's where it begins and that's where it ends, honestly, because if no one is legislating for our future, in what our future looks like, even our pay and just ratios and things like that, we're just leaving ourselves at the mercy of the hospital. That's where it's a fundamental problem. It's literally like it's at the core of nursing, where we've always let ourselves be dictated and managed by the hospital boards and not with no nurses representation in them. And if we are represented, they actually kind of tell us to sit back and, be quiet, and don't allow you to make any decision. And then somehow also we don't have any staying power. We don't tolerate the nonsense. Like, so, oh my God, I'm on the board and they're not listening to me. I'm in that position. I'm a CFO. They're not. And then you step down as a nurse and we have no problem. We're going back to school for another degree.
Right.
No problem going back to the floor because that CFO business is not mine. Too much politics. Sometimes we have to stay in politics in order to change politics. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and that's one of the things. So at the very core, like you said, the hospitals are being ran by trustees. So systems are run by people that have zero nursing background. Um, and so you can't expect decisions to be made about your life and your future by people who's never walked a mile in your shoe. So
Right.
that's one of the biggest issue, I think, when it comes to nurses. And to be honest with you, lastly, we do not nurture our young enough. So the saying nurses eat their young. I can't be you and I remember when I was a new nurse, you've given me some gems and pointers and very few nurses do that. Like you think of the next person, you're coming for my job. I don't recall you ever been threatened by me coming alongside you and working as a new nurse. So,
Right.
but some nurses are threatened
Right.
by the new nurse coming. So there's never where, let me tell you what went wrong with me. So that's one of the things I get myself involved in doing, nurturing new nurses. Let
Right.
me tell you what I wish someone knew and would have shared with me when I was in your position. So I
Right.
have a checklist that I tell them to make sure that they're checking off, because it's not about just working and loving the profession. You
Right.
have to love you first. So that's one of the biggest issue. Again, not being able to make decision and not having someone to mentor us to do the right thing for ourselves.
I love it. I love it. And I love how you use the word nurture, right? Because that actually just is one of the reasons why I founded the Nurse Nurture Network,
Oh,
right?
oh,
Is for that. It's no, because you're absolutely right. And I love how it's like, it's almost like we're like kindred spirits, like with everything that I'm hearing coming out of your mouth today.
oh,
No, I'm serious. It's that nurturing of nurses. You're right. And even in business, right? So when we look at the business aspect of nurses, of healthcare, I should say.
yes,
So I have a wellness business and there are other med spas out there as well.
yes,
And one thing I always say is, when I hear anyone say like that's competition, no, that's a resource. Right. So, and it's the same thing with nursing, right? We're resources for one another. We shouldn't be in competition. Like, why are we in competition? Like, what's the competition? Right. So, I love what you're saying. You're right. We have to nurture one another. And part of nurturing one another is giving each other that education, right? And you have done a great job with educating people financially, on their wealth management. And that's what we need to do. We need those type of mentors in place, right? We need those who are going to help us get to that wealth stage, because health is wealth,
yes,
right? So,
yes,
we say health and wealth, but health is actually wealth.
yes,
And something that I also think about, I know when we have jobs and we're working in the corporate hospitals, right? And then you think about how we offer a 401k plan and the pension plans. Can tell me a little bit about what are your thoughts on those? And can you tell the listeners like what they should be investing in and how they should be utilizing those funds or those
yes.
investments?
Well, my thought on those things is first find out what is it exactly. Because I don't know if maybe you probably were more fortunate than me. When we sign up for 401ks, we have no idea what it actually entail. What are the
Yeah.
ins and out of it? They're just like, oh, that's your retirement plan. And then okay, I'll take it. But we don't really know the full extent in what's involved.
Right.
Pension plans are not so popular anymore because they were more like something that states facilities or hospitals offer. But they are moving away from that because it's literally giving people free money and then it was not beneficial. And then when things are being ran by people that are more about the money, of course a pension is not beneficial for them. So you see that going away a lot.
Mhm.
However, what you see the most is 401ks or 403b are offered
Mhm.
to the employee. And what does that entail? It's simply they're used as a retirement plan. But if you look back, look up 401k, the individual who came up with it stated he invented an investment product, not a retirement product. So at its very core, the 401k products are not retirement products. They were not designed for retirement. They were designed for you to invest money. Why? Because the 401k is actively investing your money in the stock market.
Mhm.
The stock market is a great place to grow your money until it's not. Why? Because it grows in a variable manner. It's literally VTAC, up and down, up and down. And when a patient has VTAC, what's bound to happen? A heart attack. So in today's market, when we have a 401k as a retirement plan, not that it's a bad plan, but we also have to understand or be told that you can gain money, but you can also lose money. And when you lose money, makes a big difference.
Mhm.
Nurses who lost money in 2008, in 2020, they have to
Mhm.
keep working to survive because they can't retire because their loss was so great.
Right.
And yes, so for me, I'll give you my example. I got into a job. They were giving me a 401. I had no clue, to be honest with you, as a nurse practitioner, haven't been in the field for so long, what a 401k was. But I knew it was retirement, so I signed up. I was over investing into it. Why? Because that's what we do as nurses. We want to put our money away because they said it's tax money. So before tax money, why not? So you would want to know, how much is the company contributing towards what you're putting in? That's called a match. So my company was doing 3%. I was doing 8%. So I was putting more. So do we say don't do it? Maybe meet your match. If the company is doing 3%, do 3%. And don't, why? Do not leave money on the table. But if you're putting more in there, why would I not recommend putting more to an individual? Because it's an up and down market. There's the stability is not there. So would you not find somewhere else where it's a little bit more stable to grow that extra money that you're putting in that 401k? Because if I did that, I would have been in a better situation in 2020 because when the market went down, I lost a significant amount of money in my portfolio. So did a lot of nurses, so did a lot of individuals, right? So
Yep.
it simply because it wasn't in a stay put market, it was an up and down format. So when the market went down, so did your money. So that's one of the things. Nurses just rely on that. So it's attached to the job. So if you lose your job, if you move away from your job, what happens to that product? So we become dependent on the employer. So a lot of nurses do not want to walk away and become and do something more and become whoever they're meant to be, like a business owner, because oh, my 401k, oh, my retirement, because they take it ascribed to a job. You can actually have your own. So to answer that, my thought on 401ks, they're pretty good, but until they really explain to you what's in and out, and you can control and look and log in and look and see where your money's going and what's happening to your money, you truly have no control over your retirement. And I could go into so much about that 401k, but I'll leave it here.
No, I hear you. So what about IRAs and annuities? Because I did a speaking engagement, and the host of the engagement named it Authors and Annuities, right? So it was about my book, and and she talked about like annuities, and I was speaking with another wealth management expert, and he was like, "No, don't title it that." And I'm like, "Well, it's not my it's not my platform to say what title it should be." And he just kind of said annuities have such a bad, get such a bad name, and so why is that? But he never really explained what the thing is about annuities. So I know I kind of asked you two parts. I said something about IRAs and then went into annuities. But can you touch on a little bit of both?
Yes. Well, annuities and IRAs, they're actually a name that is used interchangeably.
Okay.
So just like, I guess, it's a different word, a different play on the word. IRA stood for independent retirement account.
Mm-hmm.
And annuity is also like something that people can use toward retirement. Honestly, I'm not quite sure why they have a bad rap, but I would say to you, to open an annuity, you need or an IRA account, you need a lump sum of money. Very rarely does a company allow you to keep putting in on a monthly basis. So that's not interesting. Not everybody has a lump sum of money sitting somewhere to
Okay.
dump it. That's one. An IRA or annuity is really something people use when they have old money. So old money means like an old 401k that is left at their previous employer. So oftentimes we find nurses who kind of bounce around from one hospital to another, especially the younger ones. They don't tolerate staying in place for too long. So sometimes they leave and they leave their old retirement account at their previous hospital. Unbeknown to them, they can do two things with it. They can roll it into the new retirement plan at their current employer, or they can roll it into a IRA or annuity, whereby they actually take control of that money. So there are different form of annuities. So it really depends on what people go into. There is the fixed one where the money doesn't grow well because it's in a fixed manner. You also have the variable, which behave like your money in your 401k, where if the market does well, you do well, and the market doesn't do well, you lose money. And there's also one is called indexing. So whereby when the market does well, you do well, but when the market goes down, the company locks your money in place, so you don't lose money. So that's actually a new kid on the block. That's everyone should start looking at, because being able to grow your money but yet not lose money is key. So annuity again, for me, the negative side to annuity is that you need a lump sum of money. And if you're doing just traditional IRA annuity, the maximum is 6,500. Roth IRA is a form of annuity. You notice the maximum is 6,500. However, there's a big talk about doing a backdoor version of it. So that's a whole other situation. But one, I don't like that it's limited to a small amount. Two, some of it are open to the market. You may lose money. Three, they are not taxed now yet because you're keeping, except for the Roth IRA, most annuity products, you're kind of telling the government, you tax me later when I start to take that money out. And it could be costly if taxes go up. So those are some of the negative part of that. And my biggest one is a lot of those accounts, you willingly put your money, but you cannot touch it until you're 59 and a half. Otherwise, you suffer a penalty. So those are some of the negative, but they have their place, to be honest with you.
Right, right. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I like how you mentioned how the younger nurses are just they're not like us, right? Like they are no one's staying in a place for like 10, 20, 50 like years anymore, right? They're just not. They will definitely they will leave and will resign. And I'm almost not, as a nurse leader, it was I would, like, where are you going? But I also understood as well
Yeah.
because I mean, I moved around, and it wasn't because I wasn't happy, or I just moved around because that's just kind of what I did. That was my thing, and it was like a learning curve for me. But I say that to say, what would you say to nurses, like the younger nurses who have the credit card debts and like the student loan debts? Like, how can they pay off those loans or manage those debts and also save and invest?
Mm. So the biggest thing in terms of like the nurses who already have the debt in place, it would be to prioritize them. And whereby student loans, you use the money, you have to pay it back.
Yeah.
But there's two categories to debt. Debt is debt period, but there's good one and there's bad one. So if you took your student loan, that's considered good debt. You used it for something worthwhile. There's credit card debt. Those are considered bad debt. So when you look at what do I pay first, you pay the credit card debt first. Because another reason is that the interest rates are so high that if you linger around to pay them, you almost end up paying double what you borrowed. So it's almost like you bought a dress for $100, but yet you're paying the bare minimum. So by the time you finish paying, you literally paid almost twice as much as you borrowed from the company. If you don't believe me, look at your credit card statement where it says if you just pay the minimum, this is what you end up paying in X amount of years. So I would highly encourage nurses to use that extra money you earn from the overtime, from the, if we ever even get bonuses anymore, and pay off the credit card. And then when you pay off the credit card, we don't say shred the cards, but be very judicious as to how you're using them. If you have a credit card that has a high interest rate, typically the store cards have higher interest rate. Refrain from using them as much, or refrain from keeping a balance on them. And
Mhm.
once you pay those off, every time you use them, you keep your usage down to 30%. And that helps with your credit. But the student loan, you can chip away at it, little at a time. There are hospitals that will used to offer, forgiveness and things like that, or depends on where you work. But
Right,
I know a lot of that doesn't exist, and a lot of time we don't have patience to look into things.
right,
So we really have to be patient and vigilant because a lot of nurses work in institutions where they can get their loan, written off or forgiven and stuff like that. We just don't take the time
right.
to find out. That's the key. And lastly, I would say if you went to school and you pay X amount of money for your schooling, do not let employer lowball you and give you like very minimum amount of money for your degree because you're a nurse practitioner. Don't come across desperate where you're like, okay, I spent X amount of money for my degree, but I'm going to take 90,000. That shouldn't be the case. So you really have to have, that's where mentorship comes into play. In asking another nurse practitioner, how much are you making? In how
All right. So no, I think that's amazing. I think you're right. Just looking at that credit card debt, because I also, I tell my son, of course he's in college, and I can remember being in college and starting to receive those credit cards, right? But I didn't have anyone in my ear to tell me not to use them, right? So I'm telling him, you don't need a credit card right now. And what I've done is I've actually, and I'm probably, telling too much right now, but, the audience needs to know, because, and maybe you can explain why I've actually have added him to some of my credit cards. And it's helping to help him build his credit without him having to go out there and actually get a credit card. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's excellent. A lot of more credit gurus actually are encouraging that, because
Mm-hmm.
your credit score is high, so will his be. So
Right.
you're actually helping him to build credit without even having like a foot point yet.
Right.
So it's very helpful, and I love how you're educating him, because we didn't have that. I didn't have that. I used to sign up for a credit card for a t-shirt. $10 on campus, you know? So being able to do that is key. Like, you're absolutely right. I add my son who's 15 as an authorized user, but of course he's not holding my credit card, because that would
Right.
be
Yep.
that would be very dangerous.
He's an authorized user. My son is grown. He's an authorized user, but he is not getting a card. Let's be very clear. I,
Exactly.
I can remember I gave him my card one time because I was away, and gave him my card. I got the card back. There was like a $50 balance on the card. I was like, how does this even happen? Like, what did you and my mother spend? Like, what did you guys do? And I'm like, available credit, $50. I'm like, $50? Never again. I don't know what I was thinking, but never again.
Oh.
So when we think about insurance, right, and the role that insurance plays in healthcare, right, in finances. So, what do you think about the what? I guess my question should be, what do you think about the role that insurance plays in nursing finances, and what's some things that nurses should be considering?
That's a great question. I think it plays a bigger role than we are even aware of. And because we're not, I just want to paint it to the point that we're not educated well enough. So
Mm-hmm.
we take it very lightly. But it does play a very big role, because of the simple fact that nursing is one of the most dangerous industries that one can work
Mm-hmm.
in. So if you're thinking about insurance, meaning that having proper protection on your life, not simply for dying, but also for injuries, disabilities. But yet we're walking around hoping the hospital will come and save us, or the employer will come and save us. So you're actually giving away your power. So a nurse who honestly walks around uninsured is really leaving themselves up to financial demise. So I think it plays a great role in my advice to nurses when I do speak to them, is alongside our degree and with our first paycheck is to get ourselves insured outside of the job. Because we
Mm-hmm.
like that, oh, I have insurance to my employer, I'm insured at work, and I'm referring to life insurance. Or
Yes.
I'm also referring to disability insurance, long-term care insurance. So, but when you leave it to the mercy of the job, you're not holding a certificate or paperwork that state what you have. So therefore, you're not privy to all of the information in what's covered, versus if you seek that out on your own. So my advice to nurses is really to have proper protection on yourself. If I may share my experience, Lindra, I started, I was 22, but I'm still 25. Yeah.
Don't look a day over it, dear.
Yes. I was 22, a 22-year-old nurse, which means at that point, insurance would have cost me literally for the cup of coffee, for the price of a cup of coffee every day for 5 days, that would
Mhm.
be what I'm paying for insurance. So which means it would be cheap. Even
Right.
now in 40s, I would still be paying the same amount. So
Mhm.
timing is important.
Mhm.
So I went on to work. I was almost 10 years on the same unit, neuro unit, slipped and fell on the patient urine. I ended up with total of 3 surgeries. I want you to take into consideration, when you just slipped and fell, have no control. I could have either broke my back or suffered a bleed. So, but I guess I walked away with the lesser sentence. I had a bilateral ankle fracture and my fibula was broken. So I had a total of 3 surgeries. I'm technically disabled to work to even work as an RN. So luckily for me, I had my master's and I just segue into working as an NP.
Right.
So now with that disability, what came out of it? Nothing. What if I had no further education? I could work somewhere else. So I would, yes, I would be at the mercy of the state to take care of me. So with that being said, if I had an outside policy, it would have been a great help to me. Yes, a lot of you might be thinking, oh, it was an under-job injury. Doesn't workman's comp cover that? Workman's comp is 70% of your pay. I went to work for overtime. Some of us need 150% to survive. So now you get down to now having to live on 70%.
Right.
That's a big change. So if I had my own disability insurance, that would have kicked in. There are also life insurance policies because the belief in most communities that you have life insurance, you die and you leave money for others. And yes, a lot of people don't have children or family to leave money for. So it's not interesting. I get it. But there's also life insurance that would take care of you, the individual who's insured. How about taking care of yourself? So for me, I would have been the beneficiary of my own life insurance policy during that injury. So those are some of the things that nurses have to think about because it's not for them, it's really for you. So that coverage you need to have outside of the job because if something happens, the job doesn't keep taking care of you. If that slip and fall had occurred in the parking lot, it would not have been the hospital's responsibility to take care of me
Even
because
though it's on their property.
it's on their property, but it's not job related. It's not work related. Yeah. So definitely we really need to change our views on allowing someone to have control over us.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. That is actually, that's so powerful. And it really brings home and make what you say, like it makes perfect sense. I actually, a friend of mine, he actually had foot surgery. Now, very nowhere near what, you went through. However, he recently, maybe about a year ago, got a whole life policy. And he, I guess he just, again, we're misinformed, right? So he didn't understand his policy very well. And his advisor mentioned to him, like, oh, you could take out something like $90,000, right? Like out of your policy. However, that policy would have been if it was a long-term injury. So it would have had to be some type of long-term injury. And, so of course he was like, well, why am I getting denied? Why won't they let me have my money? But again, he wasn't well educated on what that meant, right? So he thought because he was out of work, he was, able to receive this disability disbursement. However, it came, it came at a cost. So the cost would have been like what you're saying, like had you, not had insurance or not had you it not been covered, you know what I mean? For something like you, if he had been out of work and now he's disabled, then it would have, kicked in had it been something more severe with him needing to have surgeries and now he's disabled and can't work and he didn't understand that. So, while you're sitting here speaking, it's like, yeah, like that's the, that's exactly what happens. And to your point, that's why we need to know, especially as healthcare professionals, everyone, right? Everyone really needs to know that wealth management piece and really, and again, and that's a part of taking back your power, right? So that no one else has that control so that you can retire when you want to retire, or if something happens, you're not dependent upon this third party institution, right? So I love it. So what can nurses do to really stay informed on their wealth management strategies, or just really stay informed and take their power back on their wealth management knowledge, I should say, like knowing what they should do and how to proceed? Like, what are your, what would you recommend?
My first recommendation, the fastest one, is really to sit with a financial advisor or financial professional. There's a play in the word on word. Most advisors more educate you, but they don't put plans in place for you. Financial professional, which I hold a license to put these plans in place. So that's kind of different. And then there's no fee for service when you deal with a financial professional because everything is literally free to the client. So really sitting down with someone and getting your questions answered
Mhm.
is the easiest way to do that. Or just hop on a master class, a seminar, or something, and and listen. Just like the event you're hosting, they're gonna hear a lot of information there. So that's a good place. And then the other, when you're scrolling to social media, if you pay attention, you find what you're looking for. A lot of time for me, that was my biggest problem. Like I would just read all the nursing literatures, but never anything else. But meanwhile, people are always talking about, how they use life insurance as their bank, how they use life insurance while they're alive. I never paid attention to it until it become important. And then those book on finances are this small. And just kind of scrolling to the book or listen to an audiobook, because you have to enrich yourself and and make yourself more well-rounded. Because a lot of times just staying in our bubbles is not helpful. So just kind of asking around and or pay attention on the unit. The nurse who's the least happy with what they're doing, just say, I don't want to be her. And
Right.
then the nurse who's happiest, you want to say, what are you doing to make yourself so happy? So that would
Right.
be for asking around, because that's one of the mistakes I've made. And sometimes you have to leave your little bit of your little circle to find more information, because sometimes the people that surround you don't often know the information. That doesn't mean it's not there. Maybe you might be the one that needs to go out, gather that information, and bring it to your circle. So I love just jumping onto things that are being put together, like event summits like you're doing, and just kind of listen, because it does not cost you a thing to
Right.
listen to what information is out there, because ignorance is not bliss. So we need to know more than just the nursing piece. At this point, I feel a lot of us, we can do nursing on in our sleep, but
Oh,
how do
forget about
we do ourselves, right?
it. Forget about it. Like,
Yeah,
like nursing is like that's like I could do, like you said, I could do that with my eyes closed, right? Like,
yeah.
so that's good. I think those are some great tips for, nurses, healthcare professionals to really consider, because they like, the saying go, what's the saying? If you want to know who you're going to be in 5 years, look around you.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're not around people who can, bring knowledge to the table, like you said, yeah, you be the one to bring something different to the table. And if they're not really, being receptive of it, well, maybe you need to start being around a different group who's going to empower you, inspire you, and just make you just all around just better, right? Like just make you to really take your thinking to new heights, your career to new heights. So you're just your self development. So I love it. I love it. So is there anything else, like any, you gave some great tips, but is there anything else you wanted to share as we wrap up?
Well, what I wanted to share is for nurses not to be afraid to look at the financial piece, look at their whole picture, and really take ownership of, it might be a brand new nurse, I might be in my 20s, but have a date set with yourself. When do I want to stop working? We use the word retirement and we ascribe a number to it, but retirement is not a number. It's more how much do you have put to the side. And yes, so that way you can say, okay, I'm going to stop working and I can survive. Because I don't know about you, we've seen people that are in their 60s and they're pushing retirement age toward 70s now. Are there truly not that many people are truly able to do the things that they want to do? So a lot of nurses are putting off living until they retire. So, but then it might be too late. So the key thing is set a number and work towards that. Now go back. I would recommend go back and look at what am I being offered at my current employer. So if you're at a job for 5, 10 years, what do I have in place right now? Am I taking full advantage of what's offered? Am I contributing enough? Because if that's all you're putting money in, you have to make sure you're putting enough. And also, am I on top of, what I need to be on top of? And lastly, the biggest question I would really press on you to answer is, if I cannot show up to work, if I cannot clock in and clock out today, how long can I keep paying the bills? How long can I keep surviving on what I was making as a nurse? Because if that answer is a very few days or less than 6 months, you have a problem. You need to work on getting some kind of income replacement, um, disability insurance, long-term care insurance, and also having a sound financial plan in place. And it doesn't take a lot to start. It's really knowledge. having the knowledge and start thinking about what do I need to put in place. But most importantly, I would say speak to someone. It costs you $0 to speak to someone and put a plan in place. That's what I did. And it actually truly moved my family from a place where we think we were middle class, but we really were not doing well at all. So just having the conversation is key.
Right, right. And I think that awareness, and I think you said it perfectly. A lot of times we think we're fine, like, oh, okay, we're okay. And then when we have someone take a look at our finances and we realize like, it's like, oh, okay, like I should have been doing this 10 years ago, right? Or I should have been doing this. But you know what is, I always like to say, it's never too late. Right. So it's never too late. And you don't want to be one of those people who retire. And now that they're retired, and then something happens to them, they have a heart attack. Because how often do we hear that as well? Such and such retired, and then they have a stroke, right? And such retired, and next, like 2 months later, they pass away. It's the sad reality, right? So, live your life, right? And these are the things that you're going to be able to do to enjoy your health, enjoy your wealth while you're living, and still have something to leave to your family, right?
Yes,
I love it. So how can people contact you if someone wanted to, speak with you on a consultation or they wanted more information? How can they contact you?
well, the easiest way, I am on all of the social platform with my name, Yrlande Simon, and I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and I don't want to put my phone number here, but if
That's
you reach out on this platform, you will find me. Of course, you'll probably get my number from Lendra too. But
fine.
I'm reachable. And if it's not just me, there's plenty of us nurses doing this, educating, and you really would get a non-biased, non-judgmental view of, the finance. I know a lot of time we worry about what would people think. And I often tell my clients, I'm a nurse. Nothing scares me. I'm a nurse. I'm not here to judge you. So, so don't feel like, oh my God, I'm going to be put under a microscope. Someone's going to judge me. We really
Right.
offer the same grace you offer to others. We offer that to you too. So I use
Absolutely.
all the social platforms, even if it's a question or can you take a look at my finances? Don't think you have to be coming to me to buy something, but my goal is to educate you. I say, Lindra, that I want to infect people with the knowledge that once you get the information, your life will never be the same.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much. And once again, Yrlande will be one of our panelists at the Health and Wealth Expo, a virtual summit. And I am super excited. So March 23rd and 24th. And, you know what? I'm not going to talk about the agenda because, we just talked about that. So but you will see her as a panelist for the Health and Wealth Expo. I am super excited. So until next time, stay empowered, stay inspired, and stay living well. All right. All right, guys. See you in the next episode.